Hey podcaster, have you ever wondered how you could turn your podcast into a book? Well, today's guest, Nic Redman, is the author of On the Mic, a voice training book for voiceover artists, podcasters, speakers, and presenters. And yes, she's been on the show before. Links to our amazing previous interview will be in the show notes, but I gotta tell you that this is the episode that you have to listen to because Nic was so gracious. She revealed all the behind the scenes things that happened when she was writing, how she really effectively used her expertise and then what she knows about her audience to create this book, and really how she maximized her podcast in order to craft the skeleton of the book, which is, something that is quite hard to do. We covered, should you go with a self-publishing, bigger publishing house, a hybrid model, what all of that means. And just uncovered a lot of myths and kind of imposter syndrome and just so much that happens when you're going through the process of writing the book and how to overcome it. And we obviously cover what the book is about and why you should get it. Obviously, links will be in the description, but I am such a big fan of Nic, and she just brings such a fun approach to vocal health and how you can be a better speaker on your podcast. And so, this interview was really easygoing. Nic and I just had a conversation about the podcast. This was not structured in a way that is like a formal interview normally can be, or like an interview for authors. So we had a lot of fun with it. And I think that I have to remind you that this interview was initially recorded in the beginning of January or February. Yeah, that was February. And it's now late March and the book is already out, as obviously I have it in front of me here. And so it's such a great book. I haven't finished it, but I already went through it. So much to learn and to practice as well. And I think that bear in mind that obviously everything that is happening is based from the assumption that we recorded it even before the book is out. So the book is out, and if you haven't, get your hands on it. And just without further ado, let's get into our conversation with Nic. And you must listen all the way to the end because we reveal something that I don't think any other podcast has information on this. It's kind of an exclusive, and I feel very honored that I was able to be with Nic when that happened. So this is the podcast space, a practical podcast that moves you forward, and I'm an Xavier. Let's get into it. Oh, wait.
So I call this one disgruntled horse.
Cannot ever look at a horse doing that.
And I tested it because in the book I've written blow through your loose lips like a disgruntled horse. And I said to my husband, if I said to you blow through your lips like a disgruntled horse, what would you do? And he said and I was like, perfect, next.
Wow. That's the creative process for you. Okay, let's
really, really intense. Yeah.
Wow.
Really intense.
So you didn't go to like a cabin and write surrounded by trees and thought about
I wish. I'm going to insist that happens for my next book. I might pretend I'm writing another book just so I can have a week in a cabin. I need a week in a cabin on my own, having written this one. I need to not look at any more words, Anna, and not have to make any more words come out of my head and onto paper. I can't do any more.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a really great process. Yeah.
Like reminding yourself that I have to say that because it's true. So obviously we're talking about your book that by the time of the recording being released will be out and about. You'll have had a bébé that is in book form.
Bébé, which is honestly almost as painful as having a real bébé.
Right, because you do have a little one.
I did have one of those. Yeah, I made him as well.
So can you give us a peek, knowing that the listeners are and the viewers on YouTube are looking at this? Can you have a little peek, just for people to know that this is not the book is not there yet? Can I have a little peek on the screen about what you're looking at, what you've been looking at? Oh my gosh, the camera.
Am I going to show you? Do you want me to literally pick up the?
Yeah, just like kind of like a quick
not...
whoop whoop.
It's going to look like a book instead of a end of year sales figures presentation booklet. But like, yeah, it's here.
That is the teaser that nobody needed because the book is out.
ASMR. Oh yeah, it's already out.
We're in the
let's get
past
the
or the
illusion
future.
back. Let's get the illusion back. I'll get a book and you can just superimpose the cover on.
Right, exactly. I'll put it in post. Put it in post.
Oh, good
All right.
times.
So, all right. Let's get serious about this because we're having too much fun.
Yeah.
So tell us about this book because we need to know about it and we need to buy it and we need to get it.
Yeah.
And why do we need to get it?
I feel like as now I'm a person who has to promote a book, I need to say something like, "This book will change your life." And, you know, for the right person, I think it probably could. It's called On the Mic, and it's a book on voice training for voiceover artists, podcasters, speakers, and presenters. And it's really about me taking everything I've done in the last 20 years, which, spoiler alert, is all related to spoken voice training, and more recently in the last 7 years, about microphone voice speaking. So I've been a voiceover artist for like nearly 20 years and a podcaster for 7. And really what I've done is distill everything I've learned from working with all sorts of clients, whether they're corporate or podcasters or performers or comedians on tour. And I've distilled it into a wee book. And I'm not allowed to say a wee book, even though it's an Irishism, because my husband was like, "Don't reduce it to a wee book. It's a book." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." But it's my wee book. It's a normal size book. And it's all about helping you as a mic user get prepared for the microphone really, really quickly and easily, helping you learn about your voice and your breath for the microphone, and helping you overcome some of those trickier mic issues that come up, whether it's alignment and vocal fatigue when you're batching, whether it's sibilance or plosives or articulation issues or running out of breath at the ends of sentences and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Okay. And that's it. That's the end of the interview. Bye, everybody.
That's it. Great. Thanks very much. Bye. Buy it.
Buy it. So let's actually talk about the reason why I wanted to just sit you down. It was not really just to promote the book, but it was to talk about the process of using your podcast as the framework to figure out what this book is going to be, right? So that's actually the reason why we're over here.
Slick.
Because so many people tell me, "Oh, I want to write a book, but I can't figure out when that'll be happening," or that's a goal in the future. I'm like, it does not need to be a goal in the future. It can start happening right now. So tell us about how your process was and how the podcast just gave you everything that you needed to write this book.
So I have been doing the Voiceover Social podcast, award-winning, no big deal, don't go on about it, for about 7 years. And then I'd started building my coaching business online during the pandemic. And the business coach I was working with at the time was very podcast focused, and she was like, "You need a solo podcast." I was like, "No, sorry, it's too much effort. I hate editing. I couldn't possibly. That's ridiculous." Anyway, she was like, "No, make it easy. Make it, simple concept, easy edit, weekly for a bit, and then drop down to what you need it to be." I was like, "But I'd rather write a book." And she was like, "Well, it can be your book." And I was like, "What?" So she basically explained to me that creating a podcast can help you work out the structure of your book and help you organize what should go into a book, trial what's interesting to people as well, and really get everything in order. And in some cases, literally be the words that you put in your book. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because I hate writing. I'd rather talk it and have someone else write it. I'm terrible with grammar and stuff. So that's what I did. I set about on my weekly podcast, 10-ish minutes a week. I got it edited and all that kind of stuff for me to make it nice and easy. And I invested a decent amount of cash in doing that. But I had weekly episodes for a year. And at the end of it, I was like, yeah, that's my book. In a form. I mean, I said that to my husband, and he was like, "Oh, babe, you're not just going to be able to take what you've said in your podcast and put it in a book. It's going to need work." And I was like, I know. But the bulk of it was there. And it was really exciting to realize that. And I sort of felt like I cheated a bit. I sort of felt like I wasn't a real writer. Like it was a fake way of writing a book. You know, everybody in my field in voice practitionering, in vocal pedagogy, is like hugely super academic and like really technical and really anatomical and all these amazing big publishing deals. And like, I was like, oh my God, I'd love to do that. I can't step in those shoes. Who am I to like turn me blabbering into the microphone onto a book? And I thought, well, no, hang on a sec. I'm not writing it for them. I'm writing it for my audience. And I have subsequently spoken to quite a lot of them, and they're like, you're such an idiot. Of course you can write a book. So what I then did was I pasted, I got all my podcast episodes that I put them in, and, you know, in the order they needed to come in and the bits that were going to go in the book. And, it's the book now. Yeah. I mean, it's taken a heck of a long time to tidy it into a book, but it was really a really, really incredibly valuable process, because also I found my voice as a writer. I had to tweak it a little bit to make it book form, and I have fought a little bit to keep my voice in there, because that's important to me, and a big part of my branding and my teaching as well. So, but like, yeah, it was really exciting. And through working out the podcast, sorry, I'm going on and on. I can talk for ages. Working out the episodes, because my podcast is half episodes I want people to hear and half questions that my clients ask me and me giving the answer. So I was also able to know like my FAQs and all the bits and stuff that people felt they needed to know. So yeah, it's been really interesting.
Oh gosh, that's so good. I love, because I talk to podcasters all the time about your podcast is not just content that you have to put out there. Like your podcast can really be a bigger thing. Like, let me look at things that I don't want to have face-to-face conversations with clients about, right? Like things that it's not worth my time. I'm losing money by having this conversation because it's not really needed. It can be a podcast episode, and as well as content that you always wanted to talk about that is either unique to you or that you just enjoy. So I love how you explain that in such a concise way. But did you look at downloads in order to guide your decision making? Like which ones were the most downloadable to get like feedback or something, or that was not part of your process because it wasn't?
I actually didn't at the time. But what I have discovered is that the most downloadable ones are nearly always the ones that people have kind of asked for. You know, they're the FAQ ones. And there is a section at the back which is just basically like troubleshooting. So it's the question and then the pages in the book you need to go to get the answer to that question, so you can piece together the exercises you need to fix that thing or to explore a different option for that thing. So they're all in there anyway, which is quite nice. It was only afterwards when someone went, oh yeah, I suppose you can look at the most popular ones. I was like, oh yeah. But I think as a coach, there's a part of me as well that also knows I know what my clients need and I know what needs to be in that book. So I just trusted my instincts and my skills as a pedagogue to know the process I needed people to go through in order to get the place that they want to get to.
Yeah, I guess that was going to be the answer, because it's normally more useful for podcasters who haven't done enough work with clients to know, or who are trying to maybe figure out what their thing is and they don't have clarity. So tip to the listener, take a note on all the questions that you get all the time whenever you're talking to your clients, because that's podcast content that is gold.
Oh my God. And yeah, it's so handy for you afterwards. So anytime anyone emails me going, what do I do? Someone said I've got sibilance. I'm like, listen to episode blip blip. What do I do about plosives? Listen to episode blip blip, and then we'll talk. And it gives you time, because the whole point of getting to the point in a coach where you're charging slightly more for one-to-one is because people have had a chance to get knowledge from you beforehand. So they're coming to you armed with, well, I've tried this. What can we do now? They're not just coming to you going, hiya, here's all my money. They're going, I've listened to your podcast. I'm in your community. I've tried one of your downloads and all that. And it's that, oh, I've got to hit set. It's that funnel thing, isn't it? It's get in my funnel. But it is like, it's so useful and people really appreciate the fact that you have an answer super quick and you don't need to put aside time for a call or you have to read an email. It's like, yeah, listen to this, and if you've got any questions, get in touch. So yeah, the book is going to be, similar to that. It's like, okay, well, I've read the book and that's worked, but actually I've discovered this now, so I'd like to work with you on something more in detail and bespoke.
Yep. I love that, because especially for people who are looking at the podcast and saying, oh, I don't want to give away my knowledge. It's just clever to put your biggest FAQs there, because it's things that you can use and reuse forever. It's, you don't just like drop one episode and that's it. The life cycle of that episode is your lifetime. So, or the time you spend in your career. So,
yeah. And I think there's something to be said about, like, if you're a coach who thinks they're worried about putting all of their knowledge in a podcast, then you've either not worked enough with clients to realize that even if all your knowledge is out there, it's going to be different for them anyway, because they're a different human, and every interaction I have with a client is completely bespoke. So, or you don't know enough about your topic. Do you know what I mean? So yes. You're never going to put all of your stuff in a podcast. And the whole point of putting it out there is so people understand how much you know and how much you can help them. Maybe it's different depending on the genre you're in, but I can teach someone I can put a tongue exercise or every tongue exercise I know in the podcast, and someone will come to me and there'll still be something else that I need to do or think about or tweak in my practice to help them specifically. So also, if you get a client who's like, well, I heard that in the podcast, just say, do you know what? Well, if you don't think working with me is going to give you any extra value, then I bid you farewell. Please enjoy the podcast and teaching yourself.
Yes. Okay. So many limiting beliefs that you just crushed. So many ideas for podcasters to think about. Gosh, that's so good. Because, yeah, the limiting beliefs of I don't want to talk about this because then people won't come to me. I mean, people will come to you because of your style, because they want to work with another human, because that's how you're going to accelerate growth. Yeah, you can listen to a podcast episode, but if you got to implement that one thing, maybe you do need someone else, or maybe you don't need, but then they will come to you with another question.
It's try before you buy. Like, it's classic. I get so many people saying, I've listened to your podcast and I love it, and I wonder if you could help me with this. I get loads. It's been incredibly useful for that. And, I hope the book is the same thing. They'll read the book, they'll get an idea for who I am and what I offer, and then they'll say, I've read the book and I'd love to work on you with this in person, actually. Like, it's nice. It's really nice. And for me, it was a big values thing, because my whole MO is that, voice work needs to be accessible to anybody who can get the money to buy a book or has access to a free podcast in some way, which most people who might need my help do, at least. And I just wanted something out there that is completely free, that people can listen to and improve a little bit with, because then I feel like, it just justifies who I am and the space that I hold. I feel, like I want people just to have access to it because they need it, because it's helpful.
Yeah, I want you to tell me about this whole conversation that we had. Let's reenact the conversation we had about should you go with a bigger publishing company, or should you self-publish or go through the hybrid model? What was that process for you specifically, and how listeners, like things that listeners need to think about?
That was a big psychological thing for me. So I was like, initially, everybody in my industry to date at this point with a book of note, it would appear, has a publishing deal with a big publishing house. And I was like, well, I can only publish a book if it's with a big publishing house, because it won't be valued, it won't be seen as worthy, all that kind of stuff. So that was my limiting belief. And I talked through this with a lot of people, and they were like, well, and I said this earlier, but who are you writing the book for? And I was like, well, I'm writing it for my clients, because some of my clients are like, Nic, you always recommend loads of books, but why don't you have your own book? I was like, well, that's a very valid point. So I was like, okay, I'm not writing it for the people who have mentored me and who I respect and whose books I absorb daily and I'm influenced by daily. It's not for them, and they don't expect me to write a book for them. I'm writing it for my clients. Now, are they going to be fussed if it's got a fancy logo on it that it's published by a big publishing house, or are they just going to go straight to the content? And I was like, yeah, they're probably just going to want to get in there. They probably won't even notice who it's published by. And I'm like, so just write the book then and publish it yourself. And I was like, oh, Okay, and that's the thing you can do now. Like, you can self-publish a book. You could write a book in a day and put it on Amazon. There is almost no barrier apart from your own ability to sit in front of a screen and write some things into a document and then work through the logistics of getting it all there. Like, you can do it. You can literally just do it. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I have the character to do that all on my own. So I decided on I think it's like a hybrid model where you essentially pay for somebody to help you. So you pay for a company or a person or an individual to walk you through the process, structure the process for you, keep you accountable, give you certain things. Like, I got, a copy check and a check of my intro, and I got help with this and help with that and help with the other. And deadlines, which was the main thing that I've basically...
Staying accountable?
Staying accountable, yeah, because if I hadn't had the deadlines, I'd still be fecking around with the damn thing. So I went with that. Now, in the interim, I had already reached out to publishers. And as it transpires, potentially somebody might have been interested in publishing it. So at the moment, I'm plowing ahead because I've had discussions about the pros and cons with other people who have published books with big houses and people who have published themselves or hybrid. And for what I need and the time I want to get this book out there. I don't want to be waiting 2 years, and I want to not make loads of money from it, but I want a little bit more control over the price and also control over the content and future editions and any merch I want to put out with and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of want to hold my rights with it. I'm at this point in time, and knowing that it's out hopefully in just over a month, and when you listen to this it's probably out already, I am doing the hybrid and pushing on, unless this publisher's like, stop, here's $1 million, which probably isn't going to happen. So
you don't know, but
yeah, but now I have this weird nice thing where it's like, well, actually I could have, but I decided not to, which feels quite nice. So it's a decision I think you can only make for yourself, and I think it depends what you need as a writer, the finances you maybe have available. Although I don't think, from what the conversations I've had with people, you don't get as much as I thought you would in terms of fees and financial support if your book is quite niche like mine is. So actually, you still have to pay, really put a lot of your own time and resources into PR and all that kind of thing. So I'm happy with the decision currently at this point in time.
Okay. Well, you said so many things that are good for food for thought for listeners. And one of the things I know a lot, because a former client was a founder of a publishing company that is on the hybrid model. And she was talking about this, and I myself started talking to her about like what I wanted, what I didn't want. And I didn't realize how much control you give away when you are working with a big publishing house. And sometimes, and you confirmed this, sometimes there's people that are waiting for years on end for the process to move forward. And you lose control of a lot.
Yeah, I followed the process of a friend who had a book out recently, and it took about 2.5 years from start to finish. And the other thing I heard from other friends who have published, I've got some colleagues who sort of mentored me and helped edit my book, who've been published 6 or 7 times in different ways with different big houses. And they said that, you do tend to lose a lot of the rights and a lot of ability to, sometimes they don't want to do second editions and things like that. And with voice, with the research advancing so much, I feel quite passionate about if all of a sudden something in my book is wrong, I want to get a second edition out. So yeah, you do tend to lose a lot of that. And also they said, you lose a lot of control or the rights over using certain things. So the title, for example, so they had a book and they wanted to start a podcast with the same title, and they really had to fight for that.
Wow.
So yeah, I think as well, unless you're, you've got this book that's going to go completely global and blow up and earn you and them millions, you're just another person in a machine that helps you with your book, and then the book comes out and then they move on to the next one. So it's hard to know. I think I'm confident that I've made the right decision at this point.
I think so. And again, I think that before I just kind of comment on that, I think also there's like space for a second book and a third book. So it's not that you're like missing an opportunity forever and never again will will happen to just have that opportunity in front of you. So
I've got an idea for a second book already. Won't tell my family that just yet because I think they'd be raging. But I'll do this one. I'll get it out there. It'll be a huge success, and then I'll go, hey, look at this, by the way. And you can always try with a big publishing place the next time again. So and the other thing is, it wasn't available really this easily. I don't think 10 years ago, or maybe even sooner. Like self-publishing, I'm pretty sure is a reasonably newish thing. So at least for feeling accessible to people and something that's achievable. So technology appears for a reason, and I think sometimes you just have to embrace it and go with it.
And you were talking about the funnel earlier. Like, you already have set up a funnel, so you've done the work already. So by the time you launch a book, it's not that you're just, oh, hello, surprise, I've been working in the industry for all these years, and I've been, behind the scenes, the best kept secret, and suddenly I have a book, and it's going to be hard to market because I have nothing out there. Like, you already have a podcast. So I think that's important to remember.
I'm probably quite an attractive, marketable prospect for a publishing house, because I have... For me as a one person running my own business all by myself, quite a big audience and a big reach. So I don't have any concerns with the fact that I'll sell some,
right?
Because I know what to do. I know how to launch because my business, building my business so far. I've got my Facebook community, which is over 5,000. I've got my mailing list, which is lots of people. I've got my Facebook. I've got all that kind of stuff. So I feel quite empowered and excited that I'm doing it myself.
Yes.
Well, let me talk to me in a month. See how I feel then.
I'll be checking in on your Instagram from that to then just sending you a message like, you can do this. You're the boss.
Woo! I got this.
Yes. I'll definitely check in. All right. So I think those are really good starting points for listeners to consider. Was there anything else that you realized that you wanted to talk about and let other podcasters know that this will come up?
So the thing I struggled with most was starting, and I think most writers say this, starting every day to write it. And it's all like, set a target, write 2,000 words, For me, it was just starting. I would find anything to distract me. As soon as it started, I was having a great time. And it's been the same with the editing process. I love sitting with it in the red pen and going through it. Like, it's really exciting and liberating and fun and interesting, trying to work out which bit needs to go where. Just start. Don't set a target. Don't set 500 words a day. Don't set 2,000 words a day. Just start and write and take regular breaks. Like, you just have to start.
Yes. And before we finish the show, I want to ask you.
Sorry. I just remembered. I wrote a lot of mine speaking it because of my podcast. If you don't, just speak it. If the writing concerns you, speak it into a transcription app and then fix it from there. I did that with a lot of the bits around the bits that weren't episodes. I spoke my intro, I spoke, all, and then I kind of organized it afterwards. So don't feel confined to the traditional sitting in front of a keyboard. Get out there, have a walk, just speak and see what happens.
And and again, you can send it to a friend who is, a great writer, and they'll have your transcript so they can start writing something for you. So let's talk about the illustrations on your book, because you were showing me what was featured, and I was like, this is amazing, and I love you for doing that. And why is it special?
So my brief to the illustrator, who was a wonderful human called Esme Talbot from a company called Scruffy Little Herbert. And my brief to her was, please make everybody feel seen with these illustrations. And so the nature of the illustrations in the book are all human because, it's about your voice or the body and stuff. And she's just covered all the bases, and it just makes me so proud. So there are people of the global majority in there. There are people with all kinds of different physical requirements and needs. There are all sorts of things in everything from prosthetic limbs to wheelchairs to hairy legs to gender neutral haircuts to vitiligo to all kinds of things. And it was just really important for me because until very recently a lot of the books in my field have been anatomical man's head, anatomical white man's head, anatomical white man's body, anatomical white man's feet, anatomical white man lying on the floor. And I was like, no. Even so much as there are the women figures in there showing posture or on the floor, they're all normal sizes. They're lumpy and bumpy and curvy, and they've got boobs, and I'm just really, really proud of it. It was really important to me to have it that way. I don't want that to sound like trite and patronizing, but it just feels like it's a very, very easy thing to do, to just say, can you make everybody feel seen, or can you go in a slightly more inclusive, diverse, representative way? And I'm really, really proud of them.
I love that. And also, something that I love about you is that you're so knowledgeable, but also you're very real about what you don't know, or the process of figuring out, or thinking about everything. And I get the exclusive of being with you when you got the URL for the book.
I know, right? We got on the call and you were like, so you've got the domain for this book? And I was like, no. I was like, well, you need to do that. I was like, I'm going to do it right now. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah. So literally we were like, what should it be? And we worked it out together. So thanks very much.
Yes. So again, listener, you don't need to figure it all out, and you can actually make a special moment out of it. Like, bring your community together, bring a friend. You don't need to have it all just kind of roll perfectly. It can be an imperfect journey. It can be a, winding road, and you can just be very honest about it, and it will make it even better. Like, just do it.
It was lovely to share that moment with somebody. Thank you.
Yeah, you were not alone. You don't have to say I was on my booth and it was just another day.
And I would have put it on my list. I'll do that. It took a minute and a half. So,
Yes. Okay, so I guess the takeaway for today is, like, at least if you know what your book is going to be called, go ahead and get that domain and tag us at the podcast space and
at Nic Red Voice.
Nic Red Voice.
Nic Red Voice.
There you go. Tag us and say, I did it! I got my domain!
Get the domain!
Yes. All right. Well, Nic, it was such a joy talking to you and hearing about the behind the scenes of getting that book done, how people can use their podcast to create a book and stop saying, I will at some point in my life write a book, and it's easier than it looks. So, where can people get it?
Well, should we say the domain that we chose together? Yes. onthemicbook.com. onthemicbook.com.
Awesome. All right. I'll also have that in the description so people can go ahead and get it and show it some love. And I'll be definitely getting it already. I'm on the wait list because I want to get it. All right. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us. I love that.
It's been a total pleasure. Thanks for giving me the space to spout about my book for a wee bit. So please go and buy it. Thank you very much. And please tell all your friends and enemies about it.
If you want your enemy to shout like louder without straining their voice.
Yeah, if you want to have arguments with your worst enemy in a way that won't wreck your voice, then also buy them a copy.
Yes. Any reason, just buy a copy. Just support Nic.
Yeah.
Why not? All right. All of this information will be available at thepodcastspace.com/podcast. All resources for podcasters like beginner level, advanced level, mid-level will be there. And if you want to join our membership for podcasters, Podcast Friends and Trends, you absolutely have to check all the details there because, podcasting is more fun when you're with people. I've been Nic Xavier, and this was the Podcast Space. Have a great day.